Okay, so I've started and stopped this episode more times than I can count. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Um, and if you're listening to this, that means I finally stopped trying to be perfect and I just pressed record. So I want to tell you, welcome to Loop Breaker, a podcast for people like me who are done repeating the same cycles emotionally, mentally, spiritually, generationally. But today, I'm gonna keep it real with you because it's the first episode. It's not polished. I don't have a cute quote except for the one in the corner or a crystal clear plan, okay? But what I do have is the truth, okay? So, I feel like I had to be someone before I hit record. I had to put on some kind of facade, usually I'm a little corny, but I'm kind of funny. But I felt like I had to be super serious and super, let me hold your hand when I say this type thing. But I don't really have to do that. That's not what this is. Also, I feel like I needed a better setup because, hold on, not sponsored by Coca-Cola, but the kitchen is behind me. Um, you know, I feel like I guess I was trying to make this podcast for people, the people, the listeners are going to be people who have already made it. But, I haven't even made it. I'm talking to you right now from the kitchen dining room add-on thing that most apartments have, you know. But you know what? That's what I've realized. It's one of those loops that I'm here to break. The one that says, you know, I'm not allowed to be seen mid-process. But that's literally what the podcast is called, Loop Breaker. I'm breaking loops. Episode 1 should be totally different from episode 211. Okay? Now, I want to say this. Imposter syndrome, it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It tells you, wait until you've got it all figured out. But I waited. Let me say this, but if I waited, sorry, you'd never hear any of this. See? See, I'm not even going to cut that out, girl. I'm going to leave it right there. It's going to be right there. Yeah, I made that mistake. If I would have never recorded this and if I would have waited, you would have never heard anything I had to say today. You would have just been like, oh, ooh, she's saying she's got a podcast. Where is it at? Type, Anyway, we were never meant to be flawless, y'all. Okay? We were meant to be honest. We were meant to be seen, even in all of our mess, even with all of our doubts, even in the stretch between who we've been and who we're becoming. Because if you're anything like me, you're always becoming, you're always evolving, you're always changing. So this episode is going to be very messy, but you know what? It's my mess. It's my mess. And maybe if anything resonates with you, maybe it's a little bit of your mess too. I mean, I'm not saying, this is any of your fault. Jeez Louise. Anyway, yeah. So, Loop Breaker. Let me back up. Loop Breaker is a podcast basically about breaking loops, okay? Easy. This is easier said than done, all right? I have notes on my phone that I'm trying to read because I'm like I said, nothing has to be perfect. You don't have to have everything right now in your face, perfect setup. I've got a camera sitting on a lamp, sitting on the router. I've got a microphone. I've got Coca-Cola and a dream, okay? So, this podcast is basically a podcast about rewriting your identity, rewriting your ambition, rewriting love, rewriting your truth. Hmm. Let's not say rewriting. Let's more say return. Like, I want to return to the person that I once was. And that's kind of hard to say, especially at 27, wanting to return to the person that I once was, because this is just the beginning. But in some way, I think I mean more of returning to softness, returning to when you first graduate high school, and whether you had dreams to chase paper or dreams to go to school and be the best whatever. I mean, return to that. return to return all of that. Doing all of the healing as a woman, and also hustling on top of that. Because, I mean, I'm just going to say, I'm a single mom. I am. So, not only am I trying to heal myself, but I'm also trying to hustle. But I'm also healing and hustling and trying not to break myself to be chosen by someone else, or, to be chosen by anyone. Hopefully, trying to choose myself over all of that. So that is what Loop Breaker is. My name, if I have not said that yet, is Deja. And yeah, this is episode 1. And I would have to call episode 1, I was going to call it Imposter Syndrome. But I think what I want to call this episode is I'm Not Perfect. Because I'm not. I'm really not. But yeah. Yeah. So, um, I don't have much to say, but I'm a big fan of journaling. And if you are too, I'd like to share a journal prompt that maybe you and I could both do. And it basically says, if you weren't waiting to be perfect, what would you say? What would you share? And what would you finally start? I know we all have big dreams. Even if you're a single mom and a hustler and and everything else in between, I know you wear many hats. But if you weren't waiting for that perfect moment to do something or be someone or be who you wanted to be, what would you say on a regular basis? What would you share with others, and what would you finally start? I definitely want to know. So, this episode wasn't long at all, but you know what? I didn't have much to say. I just kind of wanted to start. And this, like I said, I'm not perfect. This was my start. So what I do want to say is I want to thank you for being here. I really, really do. Loop Breaker isn't about being above the mess. It's not. I'm in no way, shape, or form above anything. But it's about wading through it with heart. So something I love to say is, I'm trying to see how I can correlate this, but a lot of things I have to look at them and just be like, oh, that's water off a duck's back. Like, I'm not gonna let that bother me. That's water off a duck's back. But you know what? It might be water off a duck's back, but I'm gonna wade through that water. Yeah. So next episode, I think I want to talk about what healing actually looks like, and not just the pretty side of it, but I think today was kind of like that first loop. Yeah. All 9 minutes and 42 seconds. Yeah. This is healing. This is healing. Take that, you, whoever you are. That is a hater, not you who's listening to me with genuine interest, but the other person that might be watching this and thinking that I don't know how to heal. I know how to heal. Healing is healing is crazy, crazy, sexy, cool, you know? Healing is insane. But for the one that says you can't show up unless you're perfect, it turns out you can. So I'm proud of us for starting our healing journey. And I will see you